Can you make, or can I know you can, or you, or anyone can, it is possible, let's say it this way, a long ribbon. I talked about it a few times, and well, I thought I'll give it a try. I buy some new cutting mats, not like calculating stuff, not math, but mat. So yeah, can I make a long ribbon? And well, the question or the answer is actually yes. Yes, you can. So this is, I don't know, how long is it? I cut a piece of it off, actually. Oh yeah. It's 1 meter and 7 centimeters. It was longer before I cut it, of course, but this mat 120, sort of. So I did it in 2 parts, and I aligned it to my piece of aluminium here. And well, although people said that might not be the most accurate way, there is a video where I measured like how it's bending this piece of metal, if it is bending much over a distance, and well, it's not much. So I really have to look for the transition from one part to the second part. I think it's here. So I bet you cannot see it. There. Do you see it? It's right there, I think. Is it? So yeah, if I have to look for it and I'm not sure, no, it is indeed here. Because I messed up my program a little, so I had to cut it with a normal knife, a little, like 1 millimeter of it. And that's the one that is visible. The rest is, well, it is visible, but you know, it's not even visible on camera, so I think that's a success. So yeah, I just glued 3 of these cutting mats on a piece of MDF, and apparently it works. It just cuts, especially because this design doesn't have any like turns inside, so the blade just has to go back and forth. Now there is a thing about the back and forth. What I did is, so here, this end, for instance, the blade is coming from this way, whoop, and then normally it would cut the next line here, and since the blade tip, yeah, is dragging behind, so it's standing like this, whoop, and then it has to cut this line in the other direction. So what it does is kind of swivel, and then does this. Now this swiveling tends to kind of sometimes lift the material or damage it, or you know, make it tear and just fucks up your whole foil. Now in this case this is just straight runs, although be it very accurate runs compared to what I can do by hand. So what I did, the blade is coming like this, then there's a small piece here that's gonna cut. So it's gonna go here, swivel, and cut nothing. Well, just, you know, something that I'm not gonna use. Then it moves over here and cuts the next trace. And it does that on both sides. Every time it has to do the next cut, I first gonna reposition the blade by having it cut something useless. The reason is, this is a drag knife. This is not a tangential knife. I'm not even sure how you pronounce that, but there you got control over the knife. You can change the knife by G-code. And in this case, you know, it's just dragging behind. So if I move the blade like this, and I'll move over here, and then decide to go over there, the blade will follow, if it can turn freely like this. So that's what it's doing, but it screws up sometimes, especially with thinner and thinner foil. Although this is not incredible thin foil. This is 15 micron, 15, it's Dutch English. 15 micron aluminium and 12 micron mylar. I measured the traces, they do not connect, so that's good, to each other. But I did make a whoopsie somewhere in the calculations, I think, because every trace is like half an ohm. And it's nice, but that results in a thing that is 2 ohms. I didn't calculate for 2 ohms, so I might made a mistake somewhere along the way. Either in width, or I don't know. But yeah, it should be at least 1 ohm higher than that. So yeah, I might need to add another trace. So not 4 traces, but 5 traces. And you would say, well, that's only 1/5 more. But yeah, it also means that the rest of the traces have to shrink to fit the 5th trace. So it will bump the impedance like not like 1/5, but far more. There's probably a kind of calculation that's easy to do to calculate then what it's gonna be. To me, I can only do that if I double things, since I know they're half the width. It's too much calculations for me. So if I go to 8 traces, for instance, I know the length is gonna be 8 times as long, so twice the impedance, but also the trace is gonna half in width. So that's once again twice the impedance. Twice the impedance of the one I calculated before. So that would not be 2 ohm, 4 ohm, it would be 8 ohms. Also nice, but it's not what I was looking for. So yeah, it does seem to work. So what I might do is actually corrugate it and plop it in one of my existing thingies. Oh, that might be the reason why it's so low. Because I think I based this design on the clamp in the current ribbon driver that holds one of the ribbons, and it's spaced out exactly like this. So I didn't want to make new clamps just to test this method. I think that was the reason. So if I do like this idea, then I have to redo those clamps. Another thing is, I do it in 2 pieces. Then I lay over the mylar, which is, well, not stretch, but hold on a frame so it doesn't wrinkle. Adhere it to the foil. And then the machine does another pass around the perimeter. So it cuts the mylar. I could have done the cutting of the mylar with the aluminium at the same time. Might do that next time. I don't know. Now it cuts twice at this spot. Once to cut the aluminium foil, and then after gluing the mylar on there, it does also a cut to cut the whole ribbon free. Reason why that is really nice, this kind of floppy long thing is almost impossible to cut straight with a ruler. And that's because rulers might be flat, but this thing can wiggle around, since it's rather small, but long. And it's, you know, if you cut wrong, you just cut a piece of the trace off that shouldn't be cut, or you left some mylar over that can vibrate. So letting the machine do the cutting is exactly, you know, it's perfect. I mean, it cuts the same thing that either it cut it before. And that's actually interesting why cutting the outer aluminium traces at the same time with the mylar is the best option, because there's no way that there is mylar sticking out or aluminium sticking out or whatever. So it is just perfect. Yeah, so I'm gonna corrugate this and just test it, because I've made a smaller version that I had to fold over. You've seen them before, but it had like a really nasty resonance at 2K or something. Like, it was disgusting. Reason was, I think, I used thinner mylar. In this case I could use thinner mylar, but in that case I didn't, because the space in between the traces was much bigger than this. Like much bigger. And then using thinner mylar will result in some nasty resonances. There it is, corrugated. There's some things I would like to do to the corrugation thing I use. I use this one. And one thing I noticed is you need a kind of guide to keep it like square to the corrugation. That's one thing. Another thing is you turn it like this and you can only turn so much before your hand falls off. Then you grab it again and do this. But if it stays in there longer, the time you grab the thing once more, you can see this back into the ribbon. So here you see some wobbles, there's no tension on it. So here, here, here. That's exactly how much you can do by a turn with your hand. So it would be nice to motorize this, although, you know, it looks like something is to be really stupid to motorize, but in this case it would make a better corrugation to have a certain speed and just throw it through it. Did it short out? So I'm gonna measure in between traces. This one isn't shorted out. That's good. Oh, this one has something. It's in the kilo ohm range, but let's see if it is the ends. Yeah, you see? So where I cut it sideways, it connected. Rather close. So I'm pretty pleased with this thing. I might as well just film putting it in, why not? So this is the thing. It's I made it a little bit smaller than. Oh, you see, there's plenty of room. It's hardly impossible to misalign this. The only question is now if it did match up with the. That's not ideal. That's gonna probably short out. So I need a knife. Funny thing is, although this looks like PCB, it's not PCB. Well, the carrier is glass fiber thingy stuff, but these are copper tapes. So I'm gonna see how it lines up and see where I can cut away something. So when I lose a bit, I do need to make this smaller. I'm sorry. I mean, soldering would be best. This should just work. I'm gonna tape off this side here, so I don't accidentally short it to the contact points or something. I could solder it, but you know. You know, a piece of Kapton would be nice here, but it's gonna be this. Uh-oh, did I cut it too short? Yes, I did. Why on earth I keep cutting it too short? Every time the same story. Look, if I didn't cut this off, it was okay. Now it's over tension. Fucking hell, I keep doing this. This is, well, as you mentioned, or I mentioned, I did this before and it's really stupid. So now I'm gonna try to get as much room here, which is not much, because I just want to know what it does, but now I have to tension it more than I originally planned. And I need a bit of pulling assist. Like this. Yeah, it's much more tension than I planned for, but that's what it is for now. I can make new ones. I mean, now I have kind of under control how it works. On the other hand, I wanted to make another one anyway, so it's just if you make something like this, I want to know if it works immediately. And now I have to wait. Let's see if we made any contact at all. Might not be the case. Four ohm? I don't think so. I think that should be lower. I mean, it would be nice, but it's impossible that it's 4 ohm. It should be less. So somewhere along the way it doesn't make a very nice contact to this copper strips. I can imagine. Of course there is also a return wire, but it's not 2 ohms. Pretty sure that's not 2 ohms. So it's probably in the contact blocks. You see, I went down half an ohm by just adjusting the screw a little bit tighter. But I know my nuts will, not my nuts, but these nuts, ooh, you hear that? Will break out. So the design is kind of flawed to begin with. Idea was nice, but yeah, 3.5. So it's not correct. So I might get terrible results now because it's making a crappy connection, and you can see this quite clearly. It's like a straight line in the distortion. Sometimes you can hear it quite clearly as well, but sometimes you don't hear it, but it's quite visible. Like distortion that should not be as straight as it is. You know, it is a bad connection problem somewhere. So there's way too much tension on this thing. Boop, boop. Oh, wrong one. I would go for a more floppy version. The lighting is such that you cannot see it. So there's like 2 millimeters on both sides, I think. It's also too much. I mean, it's okay, but for a next design where I move the magnets at least 2 millimeter or 1 millimeter on both sides closer together to have a little bit better output. Anyhow, I'm just gonna put it on the amplifier and see what it does.